Okay, friends, we have as much of the boom arm out of the way as we can get with this current setup. That'll be finicky, or rather, that'll be touching up in the next days, weeks to come. But we gotta get that far. So first things first today, I've gone ahead and removed the packaging. We're gonna look through the manual just a little bit here, which I was intending to do right before this, but you know, it's always fun to read manuals together. Woo! Alright, so biggest things, we want the long fan screws in order to push through the case and through the case, through the fans, through the radiator. They kind of like go in just far enough. There are separate radiator screws that you can attach the radiator to the case, and then there are separate fan screws that you can attach just the fans to the radiator. So you have a couple of options there. We are going to try to get this lined up and installed here though. Still waiting for my LGA 1700 adapter kit, so we'll get all of the fans and everything ready and then go from there. So it is screws. Yeah, they just show you radiator screws into the radiator. Oh my gosh, I'm such terrible. Radiator screws into the radiator. And then I got the best orientation. Oh my gosh, like orienting this with the camera is mind-boggling. Through the radiator and then the fans into the radiator using the long screws. But we are no faint-hearted warriors and are going to go do this just a little bit differently. Installing the fans and radiator. Okay, so you're just putting the fans on the back side, though a lot of testing from other content creators has found that how you orient the fans with respect to the radiator does not matter a ton. Having the fans pick up some dust can be nominally helpful. Alright, then we'll check out the commander core afterwards. I think the biggest thing here is just get these ready, and then the next thing that we're working on is putting little caps on these. Somehow I'm missing one. Be Quiet did provide some extras, we just have to dig them up. Where are you going? That's where I do belong. I am no Superman. Well, I thought they did. Maybe they didn't. Alright, well, not the end of the world. We'll just go corners on each of these. And one will get 3 and 2 will get 2. Although at this point, I don't want them to like rattle back and forth on the corners, so we'll just call it even on this. I'll keep these all somewhere else. I mean, these aren't maglev fans, so nominally they wouldn't need those sinks, though they do spin still, even though the spinning is kind of all centrally located and shouldn't impact. I don't know how that goes for computers. Well, it shouldn't do that. Our famous last words of any build. Alright, so now we gotta find the right screws and washers. Tell you this much, they do not, they are not coy about giving you enough screws. Now, one option I had thought about, the magnetic levitation fans are just a little bit better. One option I could have is to put the radiator on the outside of the case to actually give a little bit more room for the hoses for my pump. And then like the mismatched size wouldn't be so readily apparent, and I could screw in the 140s. But I can only get 2 of them in that way. I just can't fit a third one with the pump on the bottom. So it wouldn't be the best for cooling, and at some point function does have to triumph over form. And this way I can still mount 2 fans on the rear of the radiator pretty easily. And note that like these fans are just kind of existing here. The radiator is where most of this hardware is actually being installed. So the screws are just kind of passing through the fans and then that's why you really want the washers to apply even pressure. These we won't need until we get the LGA standoff adapter kit. So right now we're just going to apply washers. I'm pretty sure we just need washers on the very outside. That's where all of the pressure is going to be, but we'll just double check the diagram. I don't even think they use any washers screwing these in. Huh. Well, alright. Not gonna lie, it's a little strange to me, but you don't have to over torque these, so could work. We're about to find out. Remember, let me do this for you and learn all of the things you should not do on your behalf. Alright. Okay, so I think the most important one at this point is the bottom fan, and I'm mostly just concerned about getting the cords through. There are little holes in this case for the cords to pass through to get to the rear of the case. Pretty easy if you just line them up correctly. I'm sorry that you can't see that angle. I will one day have multi-camera setup that allows you to see totally different angles of this, but that is not the case at the present juncture. And these twist ties are getting in my way, so I'm just removing those right now. We already know the backside of this case is a rat's nest, veritable rat's nest of wiring. I'm really not even going to focus on that right now. So I don't really have the time to even plug in the computer and boot it today. I'm really just focused on getting everything inserted. There should be plenty of room on here, so as long as you get the cables started, that should be sufficient. Now, I can say this feels like it would be much easier to do with 2 people. But the bottom screws on the bottom fan are just going to be resting. So not a big deal for us to just kind of get this started. I want to get 2 screws in here.
That way it's just kind of resting exactly where we need it. Oh my goodness, these cables are murdering me. Get out of my way. I'm like trying to finesse the radiator, the fan, and the screw all to become friends. It's not working out for me as I would have hoped. I think we have the screws in. And I will just be lightly applying all these screws so we get all of them in. I'm gonna go for the far side when you're doing this first. It's just easier to see the close side. Mounting location for the screw holes on the radiator. So I didn't do that correctly the first time, which is why it was taking me a while to like get that where I wanted it. But we're into a rhythm now. Now I don't love the gap on this. But I love the white. Like, I was talking to my wife about this last night, where like, I think I deluded myself into thinking that the black wouldn't bother me, but it really would. Alright, now that we have it mounted where we want, I really need to make sure this is actually going to fit. It still seems like really kind of tight. Looks like it's going to have to overlap on the ram a little bit here. It's not the end of the world. Really kind of wish I could like sink that down and around, but it's pretty good. The cabling is conveniently going to come out the bottom, and I'll be able to push that through the opening just below the heat sink. So that'll be totally out of the way. We'll kind of, and we'll fish it kind of around the heat sink, and there's like a little bit of a hole back there. Granted, those MOSFETs are going to get hot, but that'll be okay. Whoa, I'm like way out of focus. This is why I have like static focus usually set, because it tends to think it's way smarter than I am. Alright, well, I guess I'll be blurred out. I'm gonna try it one more time. There's like beautiful macro on my hand, but really just super out. There it goes. I don't know. I'm not bothering with the cam link till we have this computer ready to go. Not worth my time when we're so close on this build. Also, since I got my new desk, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to mount it. I'm still getting a sense for my new space. And this is very much a one-man show, so I have to make all these decisions myself. Now, one thing to pay attention to, make sure you're following the airflow. Remember, Corsair does have handy little designs on it, but the air goes from the front to the back, and we are doing intakes here because there is a filter on the front, so that works out really well for us. And again, I think that that's probably the most universally agreed upon adage in the community, is just that what matters most is that you are reducing dust into your case. Like the amount of intakes and flow is not nearly as important as oh my gosh, I have it like sideways. Okay, you do have to make sure that the cords will block it from going where you want it to go. So you just have to make sure you have those correct. Luckily at this point we are lined up high enough so I can eyeball, insert, and I can feel it and go into the hole. Give it a little twist. Yeah, there are like little resting pads for the screws here, so I think they don't want you to use washers because it's exactly measured out for how far it'll go. And you don't want the screws to go in too deep, but considering that these longer screws are made to just go into the radiator without passing through your frame, I think we're going to be more than fine for that. And they feel like they are sturdy enough. And conveniently, as I mentioned before, the radiator is like resting on the bottom rung anyway. It'll actually need to come up a little bit so that it can fit through the top holes. But that's a future Joshua problem. Although, it might need to happen right now. So we can get these ones in. The nose knows. I have to kind of just my nose a little bit. We are close here. I guess what I could do is just like totally. Could use a brain. That's not. This will also give me more light, you know. But at least you get to see for the final one. This is the angle that matters most. This is where all the cabling is going. Again, not super concerned about it right now. More concerned about just getting these all set. There's plenty of room here. It's super easy for me to just pull these through. And I kind of don't want them super loose in there because I want to know which one is which because ordering matters. And yeah, I think you can notice here, it is a bit of a bummer in that there's vacant space, so we could have more air being pulled through here. Like notably 60 millimeters of more air. I guess it'd be like 60 squared. So quite a bit, like 360 millimeters of air is just missing from top bottoms. But we're already running a 360. I don't plan to super overclock my i9. I know other people might want to get like the max turbo on their i9, but from most of the reviews and what I've seen, the power draw for me is just not worth that. I do like a moderately cool home, so having a blast furnace in my office doesn't sound super fun. And the nominal return for that is just kind of diminishes very quickly. So it's cool if you want to like max stuff, if that's really what you care about. But I'm a min maxer. I want minimal amount of input for maximum amount of output. I know there's somebody in the comments is gonna be like, well then why didn't you go with an AMD build? To which I would say, you have a very good point. Honestly, for this one, I liked the offering to future-proof to DDR5. Honestly, that's what most of it came down to, and PCIe Gen 5. Although I kind of doubt that the output will make that much of a difference, as we noticed from 30 series cards. Using PCIe Gen 4, still super usable. PCIe Gen 3 for a PCIe Gen 4 card still gets you like 95% of the output. So I don't think so. Like while the future proofing there is helpful, and I think it'll carry me for like an additional 3 to 4 years on top of what a Gen 4 board would have done. You know, I could have also bought a Ryzen chip that I know they're going to be releasing that technology next year, and I could just replace the CPU. But I really wanted to get a really nice CPU, and even though I could theoretically resell a used Ryzen, I think at that point the resale value would just be so low, I wouldn't be able to recoup much of my cost. It wouldn't really be worth it. Alright, so now we just kind of screw these in. Remember, we want to tighten these like a drum. So you just go corner to corner, like a wheel, if you're ever replacing a wheel in a car. Then we'll go back through and tighten everything down at the very end. Although I don't know that we'll need to. Like, this is in pretty firm. I don't want to over tighten these. They just need to hold everything in place. They're not going anywhere. They're resting on these little pathways end, and so the screws are resting on those, on the top one and partially on the bottom one. So not really worried about a lot of lateral movement. Oh, I should have gone corner to corner. There we go. Like, at some point you do have to go to a touching one. But here we had to do it twice instead of just once. Alright, so now to clean up our mess a little bit. So I think they do actually provide you with enough screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you could totally sink another set of 3 fans on the other side. So that's really kind of nice and convenient, to be honest. It's kind of contemplating going to like Home Depot and getting screws that I could fit through here along the sides to screw into my 140s. But I think if I'm going to do it, I think I'm just going to get 120s. I think they just would fit the aesthetic a little bit better. And they're cheaper. Like $15 cheaper for each. So again, not as great an output, but seeing that I'm considering doing push-pull, that's not really an issue. I'm already doing 60% more fans than I need to on a 360 rad, which is not a 420, but a 420 I think is kind of overkill unless you are doing some massive overclocking or you're mixing CPU and GPU like in a custom loop. So that's where we are on this. I do love that this case gives you so many options. Truly limitless possibilities. Alright, well that saves me some money in being able to return a whole fan set back for the 140s. And I really, really do love the white. I just think it looks so crisp. Okay, well before we put the front back on, 2 things that we want to do here. So I did have this commander core that I came with, and I'm thinking to plug this stuff into that first, and then we can go from that into our Core Pro. Shifting this around some more. This one, it just has like a small dent in it, but I know, like, I'm never gonna look at the back side of the case except for when I'm doing this build. It really does bother me to see it. Honestly, I know it shouldn't, but it really does bother me. every time I work on it, and I do think the fit is a little off, but it's really not a big deal. Okay. Trying to be ginger with all these other cables. Okay, and now we want from bottom to top. So inside the case, they'll go from top to bottom. So they'll go like bottom to top, bottom to top to down to around to back up. Woo, that's a lot to think about. Now you can reorder them in IQ, but people do make a big deal about how much easier it is to just get them right the first time. So we'll shoot for that. Okay, so we did have an extra one in here that we did not need. Now I could just plug the RGB into this hub since it's already plugged in. Somewhat cable managed. But that doesn't have fan control. This one does have fan control. So I get more options for the fans out of this one. And I can do the RGB on the other side. So while the Pro can't actually do RGB, which is kind of a little weird, this one can. So you get some options that way. And then I think the pump header goes in only on this one. So yeah, so we will be using this one. Okay, which means we need to remove this one. I got a little overzealous here. Ugh, I hate moving SATA power. It's like, it feels so flimsy. This is why we used these though, so that we didn't have to worry about cutting the zip ties. Although for some people, that might actually just be easier. I didn't want to have to do that, so then we'll just put these together out of the way, or they don't fold back on themselves. Okay. We are home free. We're going to get pretty close to maxing this whole setup out. Okay, remember that they have to go sequentially and you must fill them all. It's also part of the reason why we're going top to bottom, so I can add other ones more later without having to do it right away. So bottom first. And just kind of relying on the, one of them does say RGB, so you can see the RGB side pretty easily, and it'll tell you to send it to the RGB hub with a little indicator there. But also the tops of these, if you remember from our prior video, won't allow you to put them in the wrong slots. So that is kind of, not kind of, it is very helpful. This one is being very persnickety. I know I said I didn't have time, but probably not going to be able to help myself. So with this one, we don't want to plug in the AIO yet. We just want to see if the RGB works. And if it's all connected here. I wish that there was like a manual test for the fan speed. Like it can use the case for the be quiet, but for Corsair, there's no like manual trigger so that I can test it to make sure that I have the fan controllers all properly synced. But I'm just going to infer that they wouldn't turn on in the first place if they weren't properly synced. No, you know what inferring does. Alright, I don't actually know what I did. I might be in that. Simple solution. ESD strap. Ruining my day. Alright, we're in there. Plugged in here. Again, I'm not plugging in the pump right now because I don't want the pump on. So we're just trying out the LEDs, making sure that these all function. SATA power is connected. We're good on RGBs and LEDs. It's go time. Kind of twist this just a little bit so you guys can see the inside here too. Oh, I was trying to have to like hold it down. Alright, we do not. There we go. Okay. Whoo! That was anxiety inducing. It was like, remember my whole monologue about fans not properly spinning. I do think that the maglev fans are 0 RPM. They keep powering on and off. You can barely hear them. You can very much. The 140s are a lot louder. Though these are just getting up to speed now. I'm guessing they're gonna like these ones will cycle up to max RPM. Only thing left to do with these is to button them up. I think we're pretty much done here. Some cabling could be made a little more taut. This one's a little twisted. You won't be able to tell too much, so it is pretty opaque between this filter. Oh, and I put it in backwards again. I keep putting it in backwards. You can feel a little bit of suction going on here as the fans transfer air from outside to inside. I'm not really worried about this coming out of place, so let's get it clipped in. We are officially done with the front of the case, which feels nice. Yeah, so it is covered in some blacks. You can't tell the white as much, but I think that you would be able to tell the black, if that makes any kind of sense. Even though you can't see the white is not like a light sink. So it's a light reflector.
Alright, the one thing I wish that they would have changed for these ones is like they did with the QL 140s. I wish that the faceplate was white instead of black, because you can really tell that it's black. I really wish that it was silver. Also, speaking of which, I never checked for. Looks good. I'm very excited to have this turned on. It's just in time for the holidays, be able to do some cool RGB functions for my son for Christmas. I wonder if you could actually just like pull these off, but I think it would expose the element in there, so I don't think you want to do that. So no covers here. I really wish that these did have the much nicer aluminum plates. That would be my only criticism. Everything else is gorgeous. And you do need the maglev fans for static pressure, fan flow, all that good stuff. We'll be able to set all the fan curves and get all that good stuff done once we get it all installed. But the good news here is everything seems to be working. RGB seems to be functional. We just need to kind of throw this stuff out of the way. Go ahead and power off the power supply. Go ahead and set that to the side. I don't want a hot wire just sitting around on my desk, so we'll go ahead and unplug that. Safety first. Yeah, I'd say the only big downside at this point is just trying to find a home for this bad little boy. I think it's just gonna have to go, unfortunately, tucked up underneath here. It's not great because you can kind of see it through that fan. I'll probably push it back underneath where that other cover is. There's plenty of space. Most of the other cabling is just PCIe cabling that we have left to run for the graphics card, so that won't be a big deal. And I think we're pretty close to being able to do the graphics card here. Get these kind of all up out of the way. Again, we'll cable manage all of this once we're done. It just feels a little bit like an act of futility, especially having to have just gone through and redone these ones. There's unforeseeable issues that can happen. We're gonna boot the whole computer up, have it all ready to go, Windows install, all of that good jazz before we fully beautify this bad boy or girl or thing. I don't know why it needs to be gendered. Just struggles to get over that lip. Once you get it in, it's fine. But I think that whatever smashed that really ruined that stick. I guess at this point, nominally, we probably could do the pump without having to worry about the graphics card, but I don't know. I think we're going to be able to get it just like that. So you can still see the RGB from the RAM. The RAM is going to kind of hold that tubing in place. Yeah, it's going to be a tight fit, but we're going to get it. And then we'll plug all this in only after we've mounted it. I just don't want to have other issues that we have to resolve. Yeah, I don't want to have to worry about other things first. The only thing I want to check here is make sure, so this goes to the hub. Then this one needs to plug in somewhere, and I think it goes onto the motherboard.
into the AIO slot. We do have CPU fan and we have pump fan. And I think it goes into pump fan. This thing is like, once we get the standoff installed, it should go on really easily. Do you give you like there's some like tape on the back side of it, like double stick tape. So I mean, normally like we could put that in now because the standoff goes into the front, and it probably wouldn't go anywhere. But I just don't want to have to deal with issues later on. So like, we're not ready for it. We'll do it when we're ready for it. Hopefully that'll be in just a couple of days. Installing the pump unit. Attach thumb screws until all four corners are firmly secured. I didn't tell you how to do that. Everything we already know about that one. Just plug it into the fan hub, which we've already done. Okay, so USB is already plugged into the other one. So commander core is already connected. No description. I think what we need to do is have it plugged in on the top here into the pump fan. I'm like 80% positive of that. Sure, like the Corsair fan hub can plug directly into the motherboard, but it's not super helpful here because we have it plugged into a USB 2.0 slot. And that's along the top edge here too, so it's like already out of the way, and I like having only these couple of cords come in. I really wish, and I might honestly like unplug these and put them back over the top, just because the top is already a little messy, but I'll think about that. Probably won't. It does look pretty neat like that. Debug code. I think the clear CMOS somewhere down here. JBAT1. Along the top. So there's a clear CMOS function. I do think you need a connector. JBD. No idea. Yeah, so CPU fan is auto mode run by the motherboard. Pump fan is PWM mode, and then sys fan are DC mode. So those are just like voltage controlled versus PWM controlled, which is what we want. That's why we plugged into the USB so that we can adjust it through the IQ software. So yeah, so this just plugs in, and this is actually really convenient. These cables are both going to come out and out through here. One is going to plug in just right down here, and the other one is going to feed along through the back, plug into our commander core that we used for all those system hub fans. That should fit pretty nicely since they come out the bottom. Again, we'll just feed these along through the side, through the heatsink. And we'll do that when we're ready, but we'll do it first. This is like a plain white with silver. They do have a white and black one in the box, so this is actually the one I would want. All of that is to say, I think we're done today. This is just so finicky. I just don't want to mess with it. We're going to do it first. As soon as we get the standoffs, as soon as that's done, we'll put in the graphics card. I'm going to be working on doing Windows boot stuff. I could show you guys how to do that, but I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Just go to the Windows page that if you want 10 or 11, download all the boot application to a USB. Obviously, format the USB first. It's going to have to do special formatting so that the computer can read it as a boot drive. You'll boot from the USB on the BIOS. Other people explain that much better than I can. I don't think that you need a noob to show you how that's done for you to experience it yourself. I won't be able to record that. Once we have that ready, we should be all done with this build. So only a few more steps. We're very close. I'm quite happy with the progress we've made. Only other things that I'll be changing later on will be the LCD screen. I'll probably be waiting for them to release a white version of that. I don't really love the black one for this build. And although it adds like a cool effect, doesn't functionally change anything about the computer other than giving me temperature readouts if I choose that option, which is helpful, but I don't know. And then we might get 2 more fans, one to put right here, one to put right here. We have the screws for it, so that's not an issue. Just gotta get the right fans. Yeah. So the other option I could do is like 140s and just push screws out through here, so you would see screws coming through, but you would get like the superior illumination of the 140s. But I think the 120s are going to be just fine. These ones are going to be bigger and stand out a little bit more, but that is also fine. The total inputs will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. But right now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4 with 4 out. And even though these are bigger, I think the total pressure from the maglev fans is actually more. So, and then once we add those other 2 fans, we'll be running a positive pressure setup, which is the end goal for me and what I wanted to do for this build. Until then, friends, good luck on the path. Have some fun out there. Keep on building. Bye for now.